This tape is being shown with the understanding that it is for internal use only, and it will be given no publicity whatsoever. I'm Theodore Rockwell, an engineer in private practice. This is a very amateur videotape made on home video equipment I obtained and first tried out the night before the filming. What it shows is not a controlled experiment or a scientific demonstration, but just an informal but accurate record of an interesting series of events that need further study. The subject is psychokinesis, PK for short, the apparent effect of mind over matter. Folklore is full of stories about PK, hauntings, poltergeists, ancient sorcerers, and comic book supermen. Just 100 years ago, a group of eminent scientists set up the Society for Psychical Research in London to study such phenomena. They found that one of the most repeatable effects seemed to occur when groups of people assembled, most of whom were expecting to see or hear physical manifestations. Because the atmosphere of the seance parlor, with its darkness and occult trappings, made scientific evaluation difficult, J.B. Rhine set out in the early 1930s to bring the phenomena into the laboratory at Duke University. What Rhine gained in scientific control was offset by a loss in the magnitude of the effects. Table rappings and levitations were replaced by statistical tabulations. Parapsychological papers became as dull as those in any other proper science. Then came Uri Geller, an attractive young Israeli. He claimed he could bend metal with his mind, assisted by little or no physical force. A few scientists investigated Geller, but because he had been a stage magician, his claims were ignored by most. But on November 23, 1973, a new factor entered the scene. Geller's broadcast on BBC was viewed by many people who found to their amazement that their own cutlery was bending as Geller did his tests on the screen. This was repeated in many other cities around the world. We were no longer dealing with a single magician. We now had a number of ordinary people to work with. Many of these new metal benders were children, and one of the first scientists to study them seriously was Professor John Hasted, head of the physics department at Birkbeck College, University of London. His book, published in 1981, has been criticized for not having enough statistics, for including anecdotal and historical material, and for not creating a fraud-proof environment. But there has been almost no scientific evaluation of his extensive experimental procedure and results. Within the last few years, there has been a revival of interest in creating group phenomena. In England and Canada, this has taken the form of updating the seance, sophisticated instruments for detecting barely visible or audible events, and analysis of the group dynamics and psychological factors which seem to be most productive of anomalous effects. In the U.S., several people asked themselves whether metal bending could be fostered in such an environment. Jack Rouck, a scientist engineer, was convinced it could be, and he proceeded to put his conviction to test. Combining the lessons learned from seance-type groups with observations of Geller's performance and his own speculations as to the nature of the interaction between metal and the observing mind, Rouck gathered a score of alleged psychics and other interested persons, and after creating the desired ambience, told them to bend the stainless steel forks and spoons they were holding. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then one bent, then another, and another, until most of the people present had done so. One who did not, ironically, was Rouck himself, who was so externally involved that he was not able to bend anything until the fourth of what he called these PK parties. On June 10, 1982, Rouck conducted a PK party in Washington, D.C., in which he showed a group of 30 people that under proper conditions, over 3/4 of the people present could learn to bend metal themselves, even if they had never done so before. To follow up on this startling event, a second party was held at my house on June 23, 1982. We wish to show that we could accomplish the same thing without a, quote, special person from out of town. We also hope to capture some of it on videotape. We were fully successful on both counts. Because the literature was so strong on evidence that PK events cannot be captured on film or video, I set up a small black and white TV camera on a tripod in an out-of-the-way corner, turned it on before the party began, and we all tried to ignore it. I was prepared to turn it off if it seemed to inhibit the effects. But there was no letdown of PK events, and these scenes were made from that second PK party. The partially transparent effect seen when someone moves is an artifact created by persistence of the image in the TV camera. Now, what it's going to do, in place of the slideshow, which we don't have, Jack Rouck, who started this whole thing, said that the most important thing was to believe you can do it. And so he showed slide after slide after slide of ordinary people like us, if you call them ordinary. So many grins on their face, he's holding up all sorts of bent cutlery and from previous parties. And he was just showing, and he says, tonight, when this thing's over, we're going to take out some camera, we're going to take a bunch of pictures, and we'll have any more in a collection. And he says the record so far has been 80 to 85% of the people at these parties end up by doing it. And so what we had at the first party, we had 100%, so it's possible. Well, there's no reason we can't do it.
Well, if they bat 450 in the American League, it's already $100,000 a player.
Right.
2,000 degrees.
No, but it does get warm. Jack Rouck's the explanation, quote, because it's sort of speculation, is that something happens at the grain boundaries, and he's convinced that the more discontinuities at the grain boundaries there are, little impurities at the boundaries of the grain of the metal, that the easier it works. And also, if the heat doesn't get conducted away too fast, which is why stainless is good for this and silver is bad, because they tried it with a copper, for example, a piece of copper pipe, and the thing got so hot the guy had to drop it. And we had the feeling that it got warm. Now, there were a couple of us that had a curious effect. I was not able to bend it, and mine got very cold. And he said he'd seen that on one other case where it got so cold it actually condensed moisture on it. And nobody knows what's going on there. It doesn't bend.
So it's plugging backwards.
Well, along those lines, as an observer, and I came as an observer, I was sitting next to people who were experiencing great success in bending these things. And I noticed without variation that all of the objects, before they were bent, had become quite warm to the touch. If you put one of them in the palm of your hand, you could actually feel the heat.
Well, he had some rods there, steel rods, that he had put a little temperature indicator. There's a little gauge that's made out of a material that turns color when it reaches a certain precise temperature. And he has in there little pie-shaped pieces that turn at respectively 110, 120, 130, 140 degrees. And he had one of those on the surface of the metal when they were trying to bend it. And the thing reached 130 on the surface, which of course is not significant metallurgically, but it is significant in that you can't get it that hot just by holding it in the palm of your hand.
Or rubbing it.
Or rubbing it, yeah. Use or whatever. What I'm going to do now, again, still following Jack's pattern, because that worked so well, is explain as he did what the process is, and don't start doing it till we say let's go, because we need the energy of everybody else all together. And then when we get to the point, what happens is we explain the thing, we go through it, we go bend, and then everybody waits and nothing happens. And you think, geez, it ain't going to work, though. The whole thing is okay. And Jack, in his letter to me, says, that's the toughest part. And everybody is sitting there thinking, how do they get conned into this stupid group? But a lot of us have been through it before, so we know it works. So we don't have to worry about that. But then, when the first person finds the bending,
then let everybody know, let out a yip, say, hey, I've got it, and that excitement then begins to trigger it off around the room. And what I would like to do, a very important part was that he was going around to people and talking to them and helping them, and sometimes what was required was to distract their attention, because after you've done it, you have to let go. And so he would, by talking to them, then they'd suddenly look and say, oh, I'm doing it. What we're going to do is that we're going to close our eyes, and we're going to concentrate our consciousness in as sharp a point as possible, inside your head or just out in front or just above or wherever it seems most natural for you to try to concentrate it. And as he puts it, you want to concentrate almost to the point of pain. You want to really focus it into a hard little sharp point. And then you want to think about bringing it down through your head, down through your neck, and through your hands, and into the point of the spoon that you're holding, and the thinnest spot is probably the place to do it. And then try to picture that thing softening up, and then you put a little bit of force on it, and you can feel suddenly that the thing starts to get warm, it starts to get a little slippery, you start to feel funny or tingly or whatnot, whatever, and you put a little force on it, and all of a sudden there's that brief window of time, maybe 3 seconds, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, at which it's soft, and at that point you do whatever you're going to do with it. Twist it, not turn it, whatever you're going to do at that point, because you've just got a few seconds to do it. And then you let out a squeal and say, look, I did it! And everybody says, hey, mine's going too. And you're on your way, and then where you're ready, and you've got it in there. Then, trying to get all that group energy together, we're going to yell, Ben! And everybody's got to really let out all that energy. We do it 3 times all together, and then you're on your own. And you put all the intention, the energy, and everything, and the group energy that's been focused, and then you sort of mentally shrug your shoulders and say, I'll leave it there where it's been. Who cares? And that'll do. Okay, and it may take 3, 5, 7 minutes for the first bend, and then things all break loose after that point. So, okay, we're going to start then, and the first thing we do, close your eyes, deep breath, classical tradition. And you concentrate your consciousness in as tight a little point as you can, wherever you want it, between your eyes, above your head, wherever. Concentrate it very hard until you can feel just that bright light of consciousness at one point. And you move that point slowly down through your head, down through your neck, out through your hands, down to the spoon, and grip the spoon lightly in your hands with your thumb right at the thinnest point there. And then join in with me, and we're going to yell 3 times. 1. Ben! 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 Okay, now put it down.
At this point, there is a long silence, broken only by whispered asides and occasional giggles. This goes on for several minutes.
Let's talk and laugh and things, because that's when it happens. Someone say something funny, Mary say something funny.
Warn your neighbors about this. I shut the door, study plaster wall, and nobody hear a thing. Yeah.
Right there. Right there's your bend point. Just take it on your fingers. Like this. Hold it right there, because that's where you're going. Ta-da!
Boy, look, it just goes suddenly like that.
Well, there is the mall. A little higher than that, or the bull right in there. I do.
Hey!
You did it?
Hey!
Louis bending.
Right, go ahead.
Look at that. A true believer. It's broke?
Yeah, do.
Yeah, Chris. It's actually for you. Is that my four? It's broke? They are? Oh, look,
the same kind of failure.
This one. See?
Good.
Did that break? You didn't bend it? You didn't? No. It sort of exploded? I was surprised when it broke. You weren't bending? Look at you. No, it's hot. That's the same thing we had to think you before.
Right.
It's exactly the same thing. It bends way over and then it was...
And what? You're here with a lot of extra energy. I want you to think about the...
Turn this way.
I love it. Why? Because I just think it's still on.
That's the steel one?
Don't stand in front of the camera.
Oh, I'm going to stand tonight.
Oh, nice.
Oh,
Very good. Look at all the spoon over here. Why, Joe? I just picked it up. I said, oh, this guy got this grill. This spoon is like butter. I just picked it up.
Yeah, you did this.
I mean, I didn't work on it at all. I just picked it up.
My four.
The small unmanned camera had served its purpose, but the tape showed mostly people's backs. Therefore, for the third party, on July 1, 1982, I obtained a reasonably high-resolution color TV camera and a volunteer to man it throughout the evening. The following scenes are from that tape.
Have you done this before, too?
Yeah, a couple. All right. Well, there is a camera over in the back here, and one of the things we found at the meeting over at my house last week was that a lot of things that people have said about how you can never get this stuff on camera just isn't true. We got 2.5 hours worth of it on camera. So when you start doing things that you think are of interest, let the camera see, because it's not easy to move around a lot. So it's here, and we're going to get us a good tape of this tonight.
Here you see people using dowsing rods or pendulums to find a piece that is, quote, ready to bend. This is really just a technique to establish that the person has gotten himself into a positive, or at least an open frame of mind, and is willing to permit himself to display this unusual ability.
Chair. That's okay. We won't have to really. And here's another. The first thing we do is introduce ourselves. Please give us your name and whatever you want to about what you do or something about yourself. Just a little bit, so we'll have some idea who you are. And then we're going to let John Alexander explain how we do these things.
The introductions help build up a sense of group unity, and people begin to relax and feel at ease with each other.
And, sir? And that's my husband.
It's really exciting because about half of you have been to one of these before. I guess this is the fourth one that we've done in the Washington area with varying groups. So this is the first time we've had a lot of kids. And what you need to know are kids are really good. Because all the indications are that kids can do this a lot better than grown-ups. And we have at least one 4-year-old bending metal pretty easy, so that was kind of gratifying. So we're looking for a lot of energy from you. I think you'll be able to just put out and help. This is something where you can show the grown-ups how to do it. Actually start doing kind of artistic type things with them, and we'll see what kind of pictures or whatnot we can make with it, okay? You willing to do that?
The table last night she brought along. You want to hold it up, Rhonda? Let them see the one you did last night.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I was wondering if somebody had started or what.
She did that by holding it up.
Yeah, no.
Just hold it?
No?
Yeah, she just held it.
Really? Well, that's super. Yeah, well, that's the graduate course. Yeah. Okay, yeah, this stuff, just so you know, now, when we start, and then when we graduate, we get up to the harder stuff where we won't, you know, in fact, we've got some stuff hanging up over here. I think we're going to use no hands at all.
Yeah, we ought to concentrate.
And then concentrate the energy after you've done a few using your hands and see if we can't get it to drop over. Now that's one of the best that I've seen. Ann has had the other one that I've seen where it just dropped on its own, which means it is warming up in here enough that the fork will just drop over to right angles. It can do anything, but that's the best reaction we've had. And we're finding, just to give you a little bit of background on it, we have had Jack Hoffman, who did this, put it under electron microscope, and you've done some other work, right?
Optical microscopy.
Okay. He did that with it. And but what you need to know is that when we look at stuff that's been stressed, and by that, you know, we mean somebody just taking in their hand and bending it back and forth until it breaks, and we've had a few of them just pop. I know Cynthia had some where she was just holding it and all of a sudden the handle just came off on it. So we took advantage of that and had it looked at, and you know what? It's different. I mean, you can look at it and say, you know, maybe not why, but we can tell that whatever's going on is different from your normal stress fracturing on it.
I had Cynthia also break one physically and compared the two, and they didn't look at all the same.
The same was true with stuff done with electron microscopes when they looked at it. There's a structural difference. Whatever it is that's going on is structurally different. Might mention that some of the stuff that's going on at Lawrence Livermore, they set up a system. This was reported up at Ottawa. They were trying to bend the metal with no touching at all. They had a metal case and put very fine acoustic devices on it so they could hear like a single cell rupturing or cell sliding. And they did get recorded. They could hear it moving, but it was not enough to make visible changes in it. So we've got a number of devices that are telling us something's going on in there. And the key factor in all this seems to be intention. It's your intention to make it bend that's going to cause it to occur. Are you ready to do it? Yeah. What Jack calls his cheerleader mode. That's what he does. He's got a number of hats where he goes in and lectures. Most people have had it. And a lot of it does have to do with, you know, the emotion that's going on. One of the things that happens, I know, is when Ann and Cynthia start doing this, and a few others, when Jan's on it goes kind of like popcorn. And they get going and let people know what happens, and it starts popping like all around the room. So it has a secret.
Yeah, be sure that you hold it up, and if possible, let the camera get it while it's happening, but keep going, keep going.
Yeah. And let people know it's having fun. Yeah. Yeah. So some of the biggest problems they've had is when they've had really scientific people surrounding them. I wonder what's causing all that. But and that's why we like kids, because kids can really get into it and they have fun. So have fun doing it. Let people know what's happening. Show it to other folks, and it'll happen. Yeah. There you go. Okay, let's start. Let's just start by, again, we're going to concentrate your energy. Just put it into a point.
Jan, look at her go. Oh, Jan's already go.
Oh, look at her.
Look, Ellen's not ready.
Okay, now it's starting to happen. So let's concentrate your energy. Stay with us and let the folks have it. Okay, let's concentrate your energy now. Let's stay with me. Let's concentrate your energy, then bring it down, out your arm and into your fork or your spoon, whatever you have. I'm going to count to 3, and that's all say bend. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Bend! Bend! Bend!
Ben.
Okay. Now, let's just go ahead and let it warm. Let it keep going. Okay, Chris has got one over here. Oh, there goes Cynthia. Come on, okay. Oh, they're popping all over already. That's a pretty good.
How'd you do that? I can put
Of course, it really shouldn't matter.
Hold them up. Did you push it? Hold them up to the camera. Hold on, Larry, can you see this? I didn't see her move.
Did she just hold it?
Did you push on the floor?
Did you push on it? Push on a little.
You just held it and went over?
I didn't even see her moving. She
Oh,
was
that's great.
Wow.
Okay, there you go. Try and concentrate it out some more. See if you can get it to drop on over. That's really good. Doing it without hands is really tough.
She was just holding it.
Yeah, she was just sitting there looking at everybody.
Yeah, that's
Keep it going. You may have to stop it and repeat it.
Let's see what you got, Shell.
Oh, I got one that's going.
You'll notice that some people seem to be applying considerable force. After the party, we checked to see what brute force alone could do. Some of the items were restaurant-grade stainless steel cutlery. With effort, an adult could bend some of them at the weakest part of the handle, but we could not make a twist in most of them nor bend the bowl over. Some of the heavier pieces could not be bent at all. I've seen cases where little children have twisted individual fork tines, one or more complete twists, a feat hard to accomplish by force alone.
There she goes.
What were you saying to me before?
You will see people testing a piece as they feel it getting warm. Then suddenly they sense it has gone soft and they bend it. A few seconds later, the hardness is returned, and although they apply force, there is no further bending. Healers say the tingling in their hands and the feel of some sort of momentary energy flow through them is similar to what they feel when healing by laying on of hands.
Hey, Jan, hold it up. Hold it up.
Larry?
I'm not sure why.
She's been the bowl? Big, yeah. Look at that.
Another thing is, you get kind of up to your heart.
I've been holding this for half an hour. Look what happened to it. She just had it.
Wow. There we go. Winding
Okay, let me have a good look at it there. That's fine.
I've got one over there.
Okay. All right. Very good.
There you go.
Turn that in your hand a little bit. That's it. Okay.
Yeah, knives are really hard to do.
Side, 90-degree bend.
Oh, we finally got one. All right.
Went to the side.
At this point, I've added on a few excerpts from another party on July 16, 1982. Although the lighting was uneven, this was the second use of the color video camera, and we had developed better understanding and control of it. Over 100 different people have participated in several PK parties in the Washington, D.C. area. At each party, some of the people have previously bent metal. A few others believe themselves to have psychic or healing powers. A few are professed skeptics. The rest are just friends, curious to see what will happen. Participants have included an Army general, Navy captains, researchers from the Congressional Research Service of the Library of Congress, a presidential staffer, PhD metallurgist, medical scientists, psychologists, intelligence personnel, and others of various backgrounds. We have continuous videotapes of several parties from which this reel was made. The purpose of this tape is not to convince anyone or make any scientific claims. We wanted to make a record of these events and give a feeling for what took place. They were parties, not experiments. But from our experience, this appears to be a highly replicable and easily observable phenomenon which anyone may experience for himself or herself without special training or background. For this particular phenomenon, credibility is no longer a problem. The next step is to carry out serious scientific research under controlled conditions with particular emphasis on bending the samples without touching them.
What's the one thing?
What in the world did you do to that? Okay, now rotate it a little bit. That's it. Oh, unbelievable. Okay. All right. I had it on.
We had seen 3 cases of spoons bending under their own weight, but had not captured this on tape. So we clamped 2 spoons and hung a weight on one, hoping to make them bend, but we were unsuccessful. They didn't bend for us.
Well, we can forget about it. Just let the camera keep an eye on it.
Okay, now rotate.
Let me end with a warning. We found belatedly that 3 participants in these parties suffered neurological after effects. In each case, the victim had previously been diagnosed as having some degree of multiple sclerosis, but the symptoms had long been in remission. The situation reminds one of the indications that epileptics seem to constitute a significant percentage of those persons apparently central to poltergeist phenomena. We have concluded it would be prudent to provide some measure of control over any future PK parties, including some pre-screening and follow-up of participants.
Had you ever bent before tonight, Mike?
We're in.
Now we have a brief insert from one of Jack Houck's party, where you'll see a spoon bending by itself.
The first apparently successful bending occurred in PK Party 34. And I'll show a short clip where a spoon that was already bent was being held in a lady's hand, and the camera was focused on this, and you'll be able to see it moving by itself for a little while.
She's very good. Everything just works perfectly.
Look at it. It's bending up. I don't remember.
Beautiful.
Oh, look at it.
Are you getting this too?
Yeah, just getting both because this is authentic then.
Oh, look at that.
That's beautiful.
You should see it through the camera. Is this
On the way over, right?
Yeah, I can't do it right away. I can't. It's like,
Then you know this is
sit down and see when he's gonna.
Now we're doing some fast rerun just to show you how it goes in the fast motion in both directions. That's all.